Picture this. He says he loves you. He introduces you to his friends. He talks about someday and maybe and we'll see. But the moment you bring up making it official, suddenly he's busier than a one-legged cat in a sandbox. Sound familiar? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because we're about to dive into the twisted psychology behind why some men would rather juggle flaming chainsaws than commit to a relationship. And trust me, the reasons are way more messed up than you think. Truth number one, they're literally addicted to the hunt. Here's your first disturbing truth. Some men are psychologically wired like ancient hunters, and commitment feels like hanging up their spear forever. Their brains get a dopamine hit from the chase, the uncertainty, the conquest, the will-she-won't-she drama. Once they've caught you, their caveman brain goes, "Mission accomplished, time to find the next mammoth." Scientists call this the novelty bias. Basically, their reward system is hijacked by anything new and shiny. Think about it, when you're chasing someone, every text back is a victory, every date is an achievement unlocked, every kiss feels like winning the lottery. But once you're together, that same kiss becomes routine. The brain literally stops releasing those feel-good chemicals because the hunt is over. It's like being addicted to opening mystery boxes. Sure, the box you have is great, but what if there's something even better in the next one, and the next one? This isn't romance. It's a psychological slot machine where they're always chasing the next jackpot. And the worst part? These guys often mistake this addiction for passion. They'll say things like, "the spark is gone," or "it doesn't feel exciting anymore," when they really mean, "my brain isn't getting its fix of uncertainty and conquest." They're not romantic, they're dopamine junkies who've confused chemistry with chaos. The worst part is they genuinely believe this is how love is supposed to work. They think healthy relationships are boring because they've never experienced the deep satisfaction of building something real with someone. They're stuck in an endless loop of surface-level connections, wondering why they always feel empty. But wait, it gets worse, because while some men are busy playing hunter-gatherer, others are running from something much darker. Truth number two. Childhood trauma made them emotional vampires. Plot twist. That commitment-phobic guy might actually be terrified of being abandoned. Research shows that men with insecure attachment styles, usually formed in childhood, live in constant fear that anyone they love will eventually leave them. So what's their brilliant solution? Leave first. But let's dig deeper into this messed up psychology. Picture a 7-year-old boy whose dad walked out, or whose mom was emotionally unavailable, or who was shuffled between relatives like a hot potato. That kid's brain literally rewires itself for survival, creating a blueprint that screams, "Love hurts, people leave, don't get too attached." Fast forward 20 years, and that same blueprint is running the show. Every time a relationship gets serious, their nervous system goes into full panic mode. They start picking fights over nothing, becoming distant, or suddenly discovering deal breakers that weren't problems last week. It's like their inner child is throwing a tantrum, screaming, "Abandon them before they abandon us." It's like burning down your own house because you're afraid someone might rob it. They create the very abandonment they're trying to avoid. These guys will sabotage perfectly good relationships because their 5-year-old brain is still screaming, "Everyone leaves, so let's just get it over with." The really messed up part is they often don't even realize they're doing it. They think they're being realistic or protecting themselves, when really they're just passing their childhood trauma onto every woman who dares to care about them. They'll blame you for being too needy or moving too fast, when actually your perfectly normal desire for security is triggering their ancient wounds. And here's what makes it even worse. Deep down, they desperately want the love they're pushing away. It's like being allergic to the one thing you crave most. They'll spend years in therapy talking about trust issues while continuing to date people they'll inevitably hurt. It's a vicious cycle where their fear of abandonment guarantees abandonment. Speaking of protection mechanisms, our next truth reveals how some men turn commitment into a prison sentence in their minds. Truth number 3. They view love as a prison sentence. Here's where it gets really twisted. Some men genuinely believe that commitment equals death. Not literal death, obviously, though the way they act, you'd think saying "I love you" comes with a life sentence. They see relationships like a maximum security prison where your cellmate also expects you to remember anniversaries. This isn't just about losing freedom. It's about a fundamental fear that being in love means erasing themselves entirely. They imagine commitment as the soul-sucking void where they'll have to give up their hobbies, friends, dreams, and probably their Netflix password too. But where does this prison mentality come from? Often it's from watching toxic relationship models growing up. Maybe they saw their dad become a shell of himself after marriage, or watch their mom control every aspect of their father's life. Maybe they grew up believing that real men are lone wolves, and needing someone makes you weak. Society doesn't help either. We're constantly fed messages that committed men are whipped, ball and chained, or tied down. Bachelor parties are literally called the last night of freedom, like commitment is a death sentence you're serving time for. The irony? Happy couples actually report feeling more free and fulfilled, not less. Research shows that people in secure relationships take more risks, pursue bigger dreams, and report higher life satisfaction. But these guys are so busy protecting their freedom that they end up trapped in a cycle of shallow connections and emotional emptiness. They're like prisoners who refuse to leave their cells even when the doors open wide. They've convinced themselves that the walls are protection, when really they're just keeping them from experiencing life. Meanwhile, the freedom they're so desperately protecting is actually isolation in disguise. But here's where the story takes an even darker turn, because some men aren't just afraid of commitment, they're addicted to avoiding it. Truth number 4. They're high on their own drama. Brace yourself for this one. Some commitment phobes are literally addicted to relationship chaos. The uncertainty, the "what are we" conversations, the emotional roller coaster, it's like crack for their nervous system. Stable relationships feel boring to them because they've mistaken drama for passion and chaos for chemistry. They need the constant adrenaline rush of almost relationships and will they, won't they situations. A secure, loving relationship feels like emotional flatline to someone whose brain is wired for chaos. Think about it. When you're in constant relationship limbo, your stress hormones are through the roof. Your brain is releasing cortisol, adrenaline, and other chemicals that create an intense addictive high. It's the same rush people get from extreme sports or gambling, except their drug of choice is emotional instability. These are the guys who ghost you right when things are going great, then show up 3 months later with a "hey stranger" text when they need their next fix of emotional turbulence. They're not romantic mysteries, they're emotional adrenaline junkies. And here's the twisted part. They often interpret this chaos as passion. They'll say things like, "we had such intense chemistry," or "it was so passionate," when what they're really describing is trauma bonding and stress addiction. They mistake the pain of uncertainty for the excitement of love. And when you finally give them what they claim to want, stability, commitment, security, they immediately start creating problems. They'll pick fights, flirt with other people, or suddenly become confused about their feelings. Why? Because their nervous system is literally going through withdrawal from all that delicious drama. It's like dating someone who's addicted to setting themselves on fire and then complaining about being burned. They create the very instability that makes them feel alive, then wonder why their relationships always crash and burn. And if you think that's disturbing, wait until you hear about the men who've turned commitment avoidance into an art form. Truth number 5. They're professional option collectors. This one's particularly twisted. Some men treat dating like building a Pokemon collection. Gotta catch 'em all, but never actually battle with any of them. They're not looking for a girlfriend. They're building a roster of maybes and somedays because having options feels more valuable than having love. It's the relationship equivalent of hoarding. They can't commit to you because what if someone better comes along? What if they're missing out? What if? They're so busy keeping their options open that they never actually choose anything. But here's where it gets really psychological. These men are operating from a scarcity mindset disguised as abundance. They hoard options because deep down, they don't believe they're worthy of genuine love. So instead of risking rejection by going all in with one person, they spread their emotional investment thin across multiple people. It's like being afraid to spend money even though you're wealthy. You keep accumulating more and more, but you never actually enjoy any of it. They collect potential relationships the same way people collect vintage cars they never drive. The options make them feel powerful and desirable, but they're too afraid to actually commit to experiencing any of it. Recent studies show this fear of missing out in relationships is actually linked to lower life satisfaction and increased anxiety. But hey, at least they've got 12 women on red, right? And here's the really messed up part. They often string along really amazing women while chasing mediocre options simply because the amazing women feel too real or too serious. They'll keep a woman who'd be perfect for them in the friend zone while pursuing someone who treats them like garbage, because the garbage treatment feels more familiar and less scary than actual love. These guys die alone, surrounded by contacts they never called, photos they never took, and experiences they never had, all because they were too busy collecting options to actually live their lives. But the most disturbing truth of all might be this: some of these men actually know exactly what they're doing. Truth number 6. They're emotional vampires who feed on hope. Here's the most chilling truth. Some commitment phobes aren't confused or scared. They're deliberately keeping you hooked because your hope feeds their ego. They know exactly how to give you just enough attention to keep you interested, but never enough to feel secure. They've mastered the art of the breadcrumb trail. A sweet text here, a romantic gesture there, just enough to keep you thinking, maybe this time will be different. They're not afraid of commitment. They're afraid of losing their power over you. These emotional vampires thrive on the validation of knowing someone is waiting for them, hoping for them, changing for them. Your uncertainty becomes their certainty. Your confusion becomes their control. But let's break down their playbook, because it's disturbingly calculated. They'll love bomb you in the beginning. Grand gestures, constant contact, future promises to get you emotionally invested. Then they pull back just enough to create anxiety and doubt. When you start to pull away, they swoop back in with just enough affection to reel you back in. It's called intermittent reinforcement, and it's the same psychological principle used in gambling addiction. You never know when the next reward is coming, so you keep playing the game. They've turned your heart into a slot machine, and they're the house. They always win. The most twisted part is they often genuinely believe they care about you. They'll say things like, "I don't want to hurt you," while simultaneously doing everything possible to keep you in limbo. They've convinced themselves that keeping you hoping is kinder than letting you go, when really they're just too selfish to give up their emotional supply. These men collect hearts like trophies. Your pain becomes proof of their desirability. Your loyalty becomes evidence of their worth. They need you to need them more than they need you. And that power dynamic is more addictive to them than any drug. And finally, the most disturbing truth of all, one that might actually give you hope. Truth number 7. They're more afraid of themselves than they are of you. Here's the final, most disturbing truth. The biggest reason some men fear commitment isn't about you, relationships, or even love. It's because deep down, they don't think they're worthy of being loved unconditionally. They're not running from commitment. They're running from the terrifying possibility that someone might see all of them and still choose to stay. It's self-sabotage disguised as self-protection. They're so convinced they're not good enough that they'd rather stay in the shallow end than risk drowning in deep love. The commitment they're avoiding isn't to you. It's the commitment to believing they deserve happiness. But let's dig into the psychology behind this self-loathing. Many of these men grew up with conditional love. They were only valued when they performed, achieved, or behaved perfectly. They learned that love is something you earn, not something you deserve simply for existing. So when someone offers unconditional love, their brain literally can't compute it. They think, if she really knew me, my insecurities, my failures, my darkest thoughts, she'd run. So they create distance to protect themselves from inevitable disappointment. They'd rather be lonely by choice than abandoned by surprise. This is why logic doesn't work with commitment phobes. You can't reason someone out of a fear they didn't reason themselves into. Their commitment issues aren't about your relationship. They're about their relationship with themselves. The most heartbreaking part is, many of these men are actually incredible partners, trapped inside their own fear. They're like beautiful paintings covered in dust. The potential is there, but they won't let anyone close enough to see it. They'd rather be misunderstood than risk being truly known and potentially rejected. And here's the cruelest irony. Their fear of not being good enough becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. By refusing to fully show up in relationships, they guarantee they'll never experience the unconditional love they desperately crave. They're dying of thirst while standing next to a well, convinced the water isn't meant for them. That's all for today. I'll be making more videos like this, so subscribe if you don't want to miss them.